all offseason long, I've been saying things around the line of, Deshaun Watson needs to improve as a player going into year 3. Martinez Rankin needs to become a starter and improve as a player. I've been pretty much putting it all on the players needing to improve in order for the Texans to be able to take the next step and reach new heights. Now, it's not all on the players. Bill O'Brien needs to improve on some things, and I know most of the Texans fan base thinks Bill O'Brien's a bum, like a terrible head coach. I disagree. I think Bill O'Brien is an average head coach, and in order to win a Super Bowl, he's going to have to be good, maybe even great, because average head coaches, they don't really win Super Bowls. Unless you get lucky, for example, Mike McCarthy, Mike Tomlin. But other than that, average coaches don't win Super Bowls. So O'Brien's got to improve, and here's some things he has to improve on. Now, let me start off by saying this, though. Play calling isn't one of them. I don't know why, but a lot of the Texans fan base thinks Bill O'Brien is like this terrible play caller. Like, no, that is not an issue. Bill O'Brien has issues, but saying play calling is an issue with Bill O'Brien, that's just plain wrong. It is lazy, and quite frankly, if you think play calling is an issue on the Texans, you're being delusional. Why? Because you're ignoring the offensive line failures. You're ignoring the fact that last year we had 2 rookie tight ends and a terrible tight end in Ryan Griffin. You're ignoring the fact that Deshaun Watson came in rusty the first few weeks. You're ignoring the fact that he, messed up his ribs, had to drive to Jacksonville instead of taking the plane. You're ignoring the fact that Will Fuller and Kiki QT both got hurt. You're ignoring the fact that the wide receiver we brought in to replace Will Fuller for the second half of the season also got hurt. You're ignoring the fact that DeAndre Hopkins, over the last few games, he was playing on a bum ankle. You're ignoring the fact that in that playoff game, he was playing with a torn shoulder. Saying Bill O'Brien sucks at play calling is just pretty much ignoring all the issues on this Texans roster and just putting the blame on one guy. And in my opinion, that is unfair, that is lazy, and delusional, because you're not seeing the shortcomings on this roster. And I know some people are going to come in here trying to say Bill O'Brien is a bad play caller and bringing up points like, what about Bill O'Brien constantly running Lamar Miller down the A-gap? Well, let me ask you this. Would you rather run the ball where your 2 best offensive linemen are, which is Nick Martin and Zach Fulton, or would you rather run the ball outside where Julian Davenport, who we know can't block, is at, or where Kendall Lamb is at, who we know couldn't run block to save his life? Obviously, you go where your strength is at. And our strength was Nick Martin, Zach Fulton, and once Neil Calamity was down, even Greg Manx. So, yeah, if the O-line improves, you'll see running everywhere. Because I recall when Bill O'Brien first got here, you could say it's Arian Foster's doing, but I think it has more to do with the O-line. Derek Newton, Dwayne Brown, way better than anything we have right now. Texans running the ball anywhere. So, I really don't think it's Bill O'Brien being an idiot. As funny as that would be, I don't think it's just him being an idiot. I think he's doing it because Julian Davenport and Kendall Lamb just can't block. Okay, anyways, I know I went off on a little rant right there, but let's get, back on track. Here are some things Bill O'Brien needs to improve on. And the first thing is, and these are in no particular order, they're just put together, these are the things he needs to improve on. And the first thing I have is timeout usage. How many times has Bill O'Brien gone into halftime with all his timeouts? Seriously, it's happened a lot. Like, maybe sometimes he has 2 left, but pretty much Bill O'Brien in the first half doesn't use his timeouts. And you have them. If you don't use them, they go away. So you just might as well use them. They can help you in so many different ways. Like, for example, stop the bleeding. Like, whenever a team, for example, the Colts in the playoffs, when they're driving the ball down your throat and there's like nothing you can do about it, sometimes calling a timeout to kind of stall the drive, let your defense recoup, that really helps them out. It helps them out. So I don't know why Bill O'Brien is over here hoarding timeouts in the first half. You could also use them and get an extra possession. For example, I don't know, the Jaguars are driving down the field, you call a timeout, I don't know, you stop the Jaguars for a field goal, and then Deshaun Watson gets the ball back with 1 minute and 30 seconds left. You're telling me Deshaun Watson ain't going to be able to do something with 1 minute and 30 seconds left? Come on. Like, that's an extra possession right there. You know, Deshaun Watson can put some extra points on the board and, you know, could help you possibly even win a game. And another thing, sometimes, you know, like in those 2-minute situations or like in sketchy situations where a receiver catches the ball, ref said they caught it, but you're not really too sure, but you don't want to challenge it, you know, call a timeout. More often than not, there's going to be a booth review. The booth is going to, you know, call down to the refs and be like, oh, you know, that looks sketchy. Let's take a look at that. So then you don't have to waste a challenge. The refs will look at it, and if it wasn't a catch, then, you know, it gets called back, and then you avoid allowing a big play. Those type of things Bill O'Brien needs to improve on, like these little situations as well. And the next thing he needs to improve on is actually challenges themselves. Like, when was the last time that you can actually remember off the top of your head that Bill O'Brien made a smart challenge? When does Bill O'Brien actually really even challenge? Honestly, like, I really can't remember him making a smart challenge. I can't remember him making a challenge, because when he does challenge, it's like nothing game changing, nothing big. It's just like, oh, you know, you guys said he gained 5 yards. No, he actually gained 4. You know, like, it's like insignificant challenges that have pretty much no effect on the game. So I think Bill O'Brien needs to get better at challenging things. And he needs to challenge more as well. Again, you got 2 challenges. Might as well use them. And I'm not saying challenge every stupid little thing, especially not in the first half. But like, if you're in the 4th quarter and you think something's sketchy, challenge it. I mean, why not? You have them there. Probably have like a 50-50 chance to get it right. As long as the guy up there in the booth, you know, someone you can trust, someone that's good, then go ahead and do it. Use them. Now, the next thing I think he needs to improve on is holding his coaches accountable. Now, we've seen Bill O'Brien yell at, what was it, Larry Izzo, our special teams coach, like 2 years ago, I believe. We've seen him yell at him, you know, that's fine and all. But I want to see him, you know, yell at Mike Devlin for being incompetent. Like, seriously, Mike Devlin doesn't do anything. Like, he is a terrible coach. So just yell at him just for the sake of yelling at him. Nah, but on a more serious note, Romeo Crennel. Bill O'Brien is the only person on the Texans that can, well, at least on the coaching staff, that can actually challenge Romeo Crennel and tell him, hey, you know, you need to do a better job. Hey, step it up. And the thing I'm referring to is the Whitney Merciless situation. I hate the fact that Whitney Merciless is out there in coverage. He's a complete liability in coverage. And you know what? That's not a diss on Merciless. Because having Merciless out in coverage is like having DeAndre Hopkins playing on the D-line. It's not something he does. It's not. It's not one of his skill sets. Whitney Merciless is a pass rusher, and Romeo Crennel is wasting talent on this defense by having Whitney Merciless in coverage. Kick J.J. Watt inside. Let him play inside. I'm not saying do it every single time. Like in certain obvious pass rushing situations, you put Whitney Merciless, you have Clowney and Merciless rushing from the outside, and throw J.J. Watt on the inside. That is instant pressure. And it pisses me off that last year Romeo Crennel didn't do that. And Bill O'Brien is the only one on that coaching staff that can tell him, hey, that thing you're doing with Merciless, it sucks. Do this instead. He does that, guess what? Our defense goes from terrible to at least average, because a good pass rush makes up for a terrible secondary. And last year, we didn't have a good pass rush because our interior pressure was non-existent. Throwing Watt in there, instant pressure down the middle. O'Brien's got to hold Romeo Crennel accountable, man. Now, the next thing, discipline. This team, last season, they lacked discipline. I mean, sorry, Clowney, I love you, but technically, we probably lost 2 games because of Clowney. For sure, one, and you guys know which one that is. That is the Colts game where he jumped off sides. And the other one that comes to mind is Week 2 versus the Titans. Clowney, he's on the sideline. He gets called for a flag, I think unsportsmanlike conduct. And that gave the Titans 15 yards, and the Titans were able to drive down the field, put the game away. So, technically lost 2 games because of Clowney. The Colts game, we had the Colts stopped in the playoffs, and then JJ had jumped off sides, and then the game just spiraled out of control right there, because we would have stopped the Colts on that first drive, maybe things would have been different, So Bill O'Brien has got to discipline his players more. Players have to be smart. And last year, I don't think that was the case. I think all these false starts, all these holding calls, these offside calls, they're just dumb penalties that are helping your opponent out. And part of me wants to say maybe that happened because Bill O'Brien was way too focused with Sean Watson and the offense. Now that he's got an OC and a better quarterbacks coach, maybe he's going to be focused on the team again. And hopefully that reduces all of the stupid pre-snap penalties. Now the next thing he needs to improve on is aggressiveness. Step on the opponent's throat. Just step on it. I don't care if you're up by 20, 100. Keep going. Don't stop. Well, obviously, if you're up 100, then take out Deshaun Watson. But I don't care, man. If it's early in the game, if it's not 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter and you're up by 3 possessions, step on their throat, man. Don't let them come back into the game. The first Colts game last season, you were up by 18 points, and then you let them back in, and then we go to overtime, and then yikes. Long overtime game. You gotta step on their throat. And even go for it more in the red zone on 4th and short situations. I'm not saying every single time, but if it's 4th and inches, hand it off to Deontay Foreman. He'll freaking get that. Now, the next thing he needs to also improve on is sticking to the game plan. How many times have we seen the Texans doing something so well? They're slicing and dicing their opponents with whatever it is they're doing. And then, the next series, the next few drives, the Texans go away from doing what was working and then they can't do anything on offense. One game I recall this happening is against the Redskins. The Texans were just throwing the ball all over them early on in the game. With DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins was dominating. Then they went away from it. And then, the Redskins came back. It was a close game. Same thing against the Broncos. They were slicing him through the air. And then, they go away from it. And then the Broncos game ends up being a close game. And to me, that's very annoying. Stick with the game plan. Stick with what works. Now, the last thing I think he needs to improve on. Offensive pacing. The pacing of the offense. Bill O'Brien, he has to learn when it's time for a 2-minute offense, like the end of half moments, like those end of the game moments where they have to put up points on the board. He's got to know when it's a 4-minute offense. And this one's huge, the 4-minute offense. Now, if you guys don't know what a 4-minute offense is, a 4-minute offense is the offense that you run when you're trying to close out the game. Like, you want to have the ball last. And this one comes to mind a lot. 2017 versus the Seahawks, 2018 versus the Eagles. Texans get the ball. They score immediately in both games pretty much. The Eagles get the ball back with like a minute and something left. The Seahawks got the ball back like with also a minute and something left, if I remember correctly. And they drove down the field, scored, and won. Now, if the Texans properly executed a 4-minute offense, the Seahawks and Eagles wouldn't have got the ball. O'Brien needs to learn how to pace his offense to avoid these situations. Yeah, defense could have done better. I agree with that. But if you're Bill O'Brien, you should know your defense sucks. So, let Deshaun Watson hold on to the ball for 4 minutes and drive down the field, and those 4 minutes take up the whole time, win the game. That's what you got to do. And now there's other thing too. 8-minute offense. This is the offense you run when you're up like by 2 possessions at halftime. You're pretty much just trying to shorten the game, get on out of there in this situation. And this one game comes to mind from last year against the Dolphins. The game was pretty much over, but the Texans were still taking deep shots, trying to, get these huge plays, and Will Fuller ended up getting hurt because of it. So maybe if Bill O'Brien knew how to pace his offense, maybe Will Fuller doesn't get hurt last year with that torn ACL. But who knows? Maybe it's just Deshaun Watson being great. Who knows? But yeah, in my opinion, offensive pacing is the one thing Bill O'Brien needs to improve the most on. Anyways, that's all I have for you guys for today. Comment down below if you guys think he needs to improve on something else that I might have missed. And yeah, be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.